Welcome back to Capital Connection. I'm Conan Smith. I'm the president and CEO of the Michigan Environmental Council. And we are here today to talk about an exciting new rate structure that Consumers Energy has launched over the summer that unfortunately has sparked some confusion and controversy that we're hoping to clear up and get on message about with the environmental community and others in the consumers territory, because it's a really important innovation and advancement for climate change, alongside being pretty economically friendly to most of the customer base inside consumers. So we'll talk today with Greg Stevenson, who is managing a lot of the pricing models inside Consumers Energy. Welcome, Greg. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Conan, it's a pleasure to be here and get the opportunity to hang out with you and the audience. And what better way to kick off the July 4th holiday weekend?
Oh, hear, hear. Cheers to that. And of course, you all know Charlotte Jameson. She is the program director at MEC for energy issues, and she's been leading all of our rate case intervention work where we get in dialogue with utilities around projects like this. Charlotte's been advocating for time of use pricing her entire time that she's been here at MEC, so she's pretty well versed in it, and we'll be able to talk about the climate change and economic dynamics that flow from this reform that Consumers is introducing. So why don't we just jump right in it? But Greg, as a start, like our audience does know the MEC team pretty well, but you're new to us. Tell us about yourself. How'd you get into energy and that sort of thing? Who are you, man?
Yeah, for sure. Well, happy to share. So I've been with Consumers Energy for a little over a decade now, and hired right in out of school. So I went to Michigan University, go Broncos, and actually started out in IT. So studied communications, was always fascinated with technology, and came into the company, right? Started learning about all of our new systems, and a lot of work was going on to kind of build this foundation, a lot of work. And with that, started learning about all these new tools and systems for customers, and slowly found my way getting into strategy, and specifically longer term customer strategy. So we were looking into things like all these different services we provide, what we'd consider operations. So sending out bills, using technology to help our customers save money. And we started building a lot of these long-term plans and visions for how we could improve customer experiences. And then this pricing opportunity came up, and it'll tie in nicely with the journey on the last several years. But I've been in this role now for over 3 years, and specifically looking at how we do rates. We've got a rate making process, but a lot more to how customers pay for energy and what we can do to build better experiences for that. We'll talk about the rate aspect today, but we're also looking into better options for paying bills, and just what we can do generally to improve customer experiences.
Consumers and DTE are the utilities that folks are most familiar with in Michigan. You are the two largest utilities, not the only ones, but Consumers has a vast territory. Can you describe where the utilities customers are?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if this is the best way to summarize it in an analogy, but you can think of it as kind of a yin yang example. So we've got electric and gas customers. Our electric territory kind of runs along, so we're on the Lower Peninsula, and we've electric and combination service for most of the west side of the state. And then in Grand Rapids, we've electric, but then DT has gas. So then we're kind of the inverse. We're then in the Detroit metro, we have gas in DT's electric territory. So we serve, I think, I'm focusing on the electric side with these new rates. So in our electric territory, we've got about 1.6 million customers. And we think about all of them in the work that we do, both electric and gas.
I thought for sure, Greg, you were going to say, in order to describe this, I'd like to show you my hand.
I kind of up, but I was like, I don't know how to. It's an interesting territory when you look at the map. So I said
Charlotte,
yin yang.
the thing that we're going to talk with Greg about today, time of use pricing has been a priority for the environmental movement for many years. Can you give our listeners a sense of what this strategy is and why it's been so important from an environmental perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's critical to understand the peak demands in the energy sector. So we've got seasonal peak demands, which is when, mostly in the summer in Michigan, when everybody's hot and running their air conditioner, energy demand for energy really spikes. But there's also, peak demands throughout the day. So, when people come home from work and turn on their lights and turn on the TV and start cooking dinner and all of that, that's, you see energy usage during the day increase as well. And utilities have to have enough generation on their system to meet those peak demands. And also, they have to have a little bit of a reserve margin. They're required to by our regional grid operator to make sure that if, in extreme events or whatever, we've still got that reserve that we can meet those high demands. But the reality is that we only meet them the seasonal ones, we only meet them a few times a year, a few hours of the year in the summer. And we've got, generation units, so-called peaker plants out there on the system that are sitting idle most of the year. And then, used as backup for those peak events. And most of those, pretty much all of those peaker plants are older, oil fired in some instances, kind of polluting plants. And so the more we can drive down that peak demand, the more we can then get those peaker plants off the system, thereby reducing air pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, all of those nasty things. But also, it represents a huge opportunity to save customers money too, and to keep energy affordable, which I know Greg is going to talk more about too.
Yeah, so Greg, you guys have looked at this and said, hey, there's actually an economic incentive that we think we can tap into. I'm going to put up a slide about the initiation of your summer peak rate. Can you talk about the program that you unveiled a couple of weeks ago?
Yes. And then
There we go.
there it comes. Yeah, for sure. And well, Charlotte, I think that is a great summary of exactly what we're seeing happen. And as we look at the demand on our system and we look at how we can continue to engage our customers and again, find ways for them to save on their bills, because we know that this is really a partnership as we move forward. We'll talk more, I know, later about that. So what debuted this year, but it's been a 3-year project, if you will, is our summer peak rate. And just like Charlotte mentioned, we're really targeting those periods of peak demand, where traditionally, when you look at the market, electricity costs more and requires an extensive amount of grid support when we hit that peak demand. So the rate is actually correlated across that usage period. So from June 1st through September 30th, during weekdays from 2 to 7 p.m., electricity will cost about 15 cents for that 5-hour period. And then during the remainder of the 19 hours of the day, it's about 10 cents. And that peak differential is, again, what we would consider to be causation with the cost of energy, but also gives customers the opportunity to leverage that time period. This is where we get really excited when we think about this rate structure, because our previous rate structure, you just pay what you used, and some customers had to pay more because they went over a threshold. And we've always charged different summer. I think, Charlotte, you nailed it again. We just know that in Michigan, with our climate, during the summer, very peaky compared to other states. And I'm sure we'll talk about the California approach to other states. But our climate's so unique here. We love our 4 seasons in Michigan. So when we think about summer, it gives our customers more control now during these different periods to say, well, hey, I'm able to shift energy outside of that period, I'll pay less for it. And then we've got a lot of options too. Mentioned technology. We've got other programs that leverage technology for customers to save more. And I think the most exciting part is the connection to that clean energy future. And it really does provide us with a way to work with our customers to reduce that peak demand, so that we don't have to turn on that fossil fuel generation, so that we don't have to invest in new power generation, which we know those are added costs for our customers and for our company. So I really see it as a win-win.
So over the summer, between the hours of 2 and 7, you've introduced sort of a differential pricing that lets the consumer know that costs more, and they have a choice to move their use to those off-peak hours. How are you envisioning like consumer control in that? I should actually say, Greg, you guys ran a very extensive experiment with this across 50,000 customers, right? So you got some experiential data that informed the creation of this price.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, so this slide here is a great representation of what Charlotte said, because this is an example of what, for other purposes, what we would look at for demand on our grid. And that thick gray line is kind of the average, but you see the peakiness of energy use in Michigan. Again, so you target that June to September area, and you see the system really peak in the very, very small durations, hours for a whole year. And we ensure reliability by building our grid to support. That's our commitment in the reliability space. So if we can lower that peak or shift that use, you see there's a lot of opportunity to flatten the load curve. And then Conan, if you jump to the next slide, it's kind of the aha slide. So these are actual results we did get from our pilot. So I mentioned this was a 3-year journey. In 2019, we started to move forward with how can we best support customers with this type of transition. So we actually identified a representative sample of all of our customers. There was about 50,000 we started with. Said, let's try to flip this whole rate change mentality and say, can we support customers to save and understand why this change is happening? And here you actually see that same window, 2 to 7 p.m., that the peak actually shifted. And we saw an reduction of about 3.5%. Which is, small on this scale, but when you apply it to the entire population of our customers, you're talking a power plant. So this is really exciting to share, because this is all engagement from our customers. Consumers Energy did not do any type of control. We did not send any type of signal. We just provided our customers with information on how they can save, how it impacts the clean energy future that we're all committed to, and all the different tools that can help. And I won't get into some of the other stats, but that's like the exciting piece of this, is through the right tools, through the right information, we can really partner on this together and save money and impact that, like I said, that clean energy future.
So what are some of the things that you were keeping in mind as you were designing this rate? Affordability, equity, like how did you think about the construct of it?
Yeah, and there's kind of 2 components of the rate design. So there's the actual math behind the tariff, if you will. And I know Charlotte can probably speak a lot more to that. So we've got a dedicated rates and tariffs team that analyzes to 6 decimal points the needs for these rates, how the peak differential ends up with how energy is used on the grid. But what we did on really the customer side of things we looked at a lot of that information to understand impacts. And I believe maybe the next slide talks a little bit about that, because we were really interested in understanding, okay, this is not like a traditional rate change where there's a certain amount of investment we need to make. So this customer class will therefore pay this much more or this much less, depending on the type of case. This is one where the impact is solely based on how you use energy. And we knew that in the world of rates with 6 decimal point, now we're talking about 2 different time periods during 2 different seasons, during, you know, this whole transition. And this took place during the pandemic last year. And so we made sure that we could really dig into the data and really understand, okay, what's most important to our customers? Well, how is this going to impact me? So we did some extensive data analysis over the last 2 years to really understand bill impact. So what's it going to do to my bottom line? And here you actually see the summary of that analysis. And that's why we say most customers do less than a $2 impact, specifically because the way that we're changing, again, the old rate was just kind of up to this point, you pay this much, and there's a higher tier rate if you use over that. Now it's like, well, hey, maybe I'm not using as much during that peak time. And if you are, maybe you do see a larger impact, like $4 or $5 or more, some small can immediately reduce that. But as you'll see here, a lot of customers are going to instantly save by nothing just because they're already using that behavior. So that's a lot of the science that went in customer side. And then we continue to analyze how the grid is evolving. We'll talk more about our new clean energy plan, but looking at how customer behaviors change and the mix of that right now with, you know, kind of the next phase of getting past this pandemic, and among a lot of things.
Greg, does this rate apply to just the residential customer class now, or is it applied across your industrial and commercial?
It's just residential. So I say that in the way that our rate making exists today. So residential just means you're in that residential class. Now, I know from experience and talking with customers that if you're a residential customer and you have a pole barn that's separately metered, you're technically on a residential rate there. So your pole barn is not being impacted by this rate, but your home is. Mm-hmm. Or you're a smaller, you know, maybe you run your business out of your home, but we would still consider that home to be residential. So that's how it really applies.
So Charlotte, MEC has been a long advocate of 2 important interventions that can help consumers, customers mitigate any of the negative effects they might anticipate or see in this rate change. We care a lot about people's behaviors. So when we use what kind of energy, so we have some measure of control over that. And then also making sure that the buildings themselves are much more efficient. Can you talk about some of the interventions that individuals might consider in order to make sure that they're among the large number of people whose bills are actually going to go down because of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing to realize or appreciate is that when it comes down to it, a lot of energy use is actually discretionary. So I can choose when to run my dishwasher. I can choose when to do my laundry. Some of these things that use up higher amounts of energy that I can shift to other parts of the day when the rates are lower. And if you do that, that's when you'll start seeing those potential savings from the new rate. So the whole kind of model of time of use rates is really shift and save. So do those things that are discretionary uses of energy that you can, move to a cheaper part of the day, do them then, right? Vacuum your house in the morning or in the evenings or on weekends, and not in that peak time period. And I think the key there is that, again, it's what happens in the aggregate. So you as a consumers energy residential customer will probably see your bill go down if you do that. But also, if enough people do it, then we're bringing that overall peak demand down, and we're avoiding costs on the utility system as a whole, and that's going to help keep residential rates across the board low. So you're not only helping yourself out, but you're helping all the other residential customers out too. And I think that's really important. And then, energy efficiency is always a no-brainer, right? If you're investing in the energy efficiency of your residents, you're going to save money across the board generally, and it's just a good way to make sure that you're kind of controlling costs at any time of the day, right? And also helps lead to a more comfortable, healthy, affordable home for you and your family too.
I love the idea of the discretionary control. Just this past week, I found myself going down to the basement to run the washer and dryer at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I had a break in the day. And literally walking down the stairs, I thought about this webinar. I was like, wait a minute, why don't I wait a few hours and do that after 7 o'clock? And I don't know if the peak model is the same for DTE, where I'm a customer, as it is for consumers. But just that awareness was enough to cause me to change my behavior. And so
I actually, interestingly enough, enrolled in the DTE pilot that they're doing. So they're in the pilot stage still for the time of use rate, but their rate is similar to consumers. It's 3 to 7. But yeah, similar in terms of price differential and that kind of thing. So hopefully, I think the pilot has been going well. I guess we'll find out soon from DTE in terms of their results, but hopefully this will also mean a transition for them to more to rolling out time of use rates across their residential customer class too.
And Greg, Consumers is providing your customers with access to a bunch of tools that can help them make these kinds of decisions, and programs that they can enroll in that will help facilitate that shift in the peak. Can you talk a little bit about the extra things you're offering to customers?
Definitely, yes. And even on the next slide, Charlotte, I love these transitions because I think we're on the same level, where we, again, in the years that we had been building this plan to support our customers with the ultimate transition this year. I left out that we were planning to do it last year, and then the pandemic hit, and we made the decision to postpone it. It wasn't the right time. And we learned so much from that point too, where we were able to get better at providing the right information for our customers. So we've already sent out information that says, here's your specific impact. So not just the averages that I just shared, but in this specific case, it would say, although you're both DTE customers, if you were CE customers, I would say, dear Charlotte, here's the impact to you in your home. And then we actually had a personalized program suggestion, and that's referenced on this letter. Because as I mentioned, we've got some great technology that can help that's already built around reducing on-peak consumption, and that's through our demand response programs. So given the information so that you've got that reminder in the back of your head, and actually one of the things that people seem to love that we've sent out is a magnet, just so you have that little reminder that says, all right, yeah, I can save some money today by starting the laundry, later in the afternoon or later in the evening, or start the day. But the technology and the tools that we have is really it's getting exciting. So if you have a smart thermostat already, we have a program that will pre-cool your home so that you can save while keeping you comfortable. We've got other programs available too, if you're interested in saving more, all related around on-peak reduction.
So Greg, this is all part of a much larger clean energy, renewable energy strategy within the company. How does the pricing fit in with your goals around the transition to renewables?
Yes, definitely. Well, it's almost perfect timing, right? We just announced the second edition of our clean energy plan. So we released the first one several years ago. Already took a stand to go coal free, and we're really excited to say that we're doing that 15 years early now. So by 2025, we will be coal free as far as our generation goes, and it's critical for us. I've mentioned it a couple times, but it's critical for us to work together because as we saw with the peakiness of our system, and we want to be able to continue to provide reliable and affordable energy, but we know that the clean aspect is going to be is a big challenge to continue to transition. So you kind of see here that we are going to do that. You know, and this shows the year increments of where we're going to land by 2040. But what's most exciting about this is that it is not a situation where there's nothing we can do about it. It's like we can do this all together. And it really starts with these small decisions of, should I start my laundry now? And it feels like that, how could that impact the future of a clean, reliable grid? It does, because like Charlotte said, if we all take these small steps, not only will we save on our bill, but we will reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, and we'll move towards a beautiful future for the next generation where they're going to ask, you know, did you really use coal in the past to generate? Like, what's up with that? And I asked me those questions when she's old enough, but that's the exciting part in all of this.
I know we're going to poke at you guys a little bit in the IRP about an increase in gas that you're using in order to facilitate this transition. Charlotte, you want to talk a little bit about how excited we are about generally the shift to much more renewables in the consumer portfolio, and how we're thinking about our advocacy around that transition?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still reading through the thousands of pages of filings in the Consumers Integrated Resource Plan, which is this, long range
Yes.
energy plan. So I'm still digesting. But I think my key takeaways is the same as Greg. Like, I think it's incredibly exciting that consumers is fully transitioning off of coal by 2025, and also frankly looking at closing down some of those oil fired peakers, which is really great. We are definitely skeptical about the move to gas, and that's going to be a key thing that we're really looking at. But I think the sort of economics behind renewables are such that moving forward, that makes we're in a place where wind and solar are really a no-brainer. And I think that's it's really exciting that we're finally kind of getting there in terms of the energy generation side of the equation.
And Charlotte, to sort of bring it full circle, like, can you talk a little bit about the importance of this peak pricing strategy that has been rolled out now to that overall transition?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's going to be really fascinating to watch. We're always going to have peaks on the system, and it's always going to be important for utilities to manage those. But the even more interesting thing is as we transition more to solar, which is generating energy on those hot, sunny summer days, we could see our peak shift, right? Or we could see a call from utilities to use more energy, in the middle of the day to soak up some of that solar. So I think having dynamic pricing like this and having people get to a place where they are better understanding that energy doesn't cost the same throughout the day, is gonna help us in the long run, because then customers can better respond as we transition our entire energy system. And really, then we can focus on ways together that we all, are controlling energy costs.
Greg, we are so delighted to have been partnered with you on the introduction of this innovation in Michigan. It really can help us, as Charlotte says, reframe how we think about our energy use as consumers, as the industry, and really as a unified society that wants a cleaner, better future for our kids and those who come after us. Thank you so much for taking time to share what this program is with us today, and Charlotte for providing the environmental context around it. Everyone out there in the audience, I hope you will encourage any of your friends, family members who are in the consumer's territory to pay close attention to this rate and take advantage of it and help facilitate that transition, and do what you can to demystify it. It's a pretty cool and straightforward strategy that can really benefit everyone in the state of Michigan if we dig in hard on it. So, Charlotte, Greg, thanks for taking time today. We're at the hour, and we'll see everybody next time on our next Capital Connection.